John Deere thought they were dealing with just another quiet farmer. They had no idea his wife was about to make them regret every single word they said. And if you've ever been lied to by a big company and felt completely powerless, this story is going to hit you different. Because what this couple did didn't require money, lawyers, or connections. It just required guts, and one very angry woman who refused to back down. Before we get into it, if stories like this make your blood boil and your heart race at the same time, you're exactly the kind of person who belongs on this channel. Hit subscribe right now, because we find the stories nobody's talking about, and we make sure the world hears them. Now, let's go back to October. 2019. Small farm in rural Tennessee. The air smells like hay and diesel. The sky is wide open. And a 67-year-old man named Earl Sutton is doing what he's done every single morning for the last 40 years. Walking his land, checking his equipment, making sure everything is ready for the day. Earl isn't the kind of man who complains. He's the kind of man who fixes things with his hands and doesn't ask for help unless he absolutely has to. His neighbors respect him. His community trusts him. And his wife, Carol Sutton, is the kind of woman who keeps the whole operation running while Earl pretends he's the one in charge. They've been married for 41 years. They built their farm from nothing. 2 kids, 3 grandkids, 1 beat-up kitchen table where every major decision gets made over coffee. This isn't just a business for them. It's their entire life. And at the center of that life, the machine that makes everything possible, is Earl's John Deere 6130R tractor. That thing cost him over $150,000, not rented, not leased, bought, paid for with years of sweat and savings. Earl treated that tractor like some people treat their cars, cleaned it, maintained it, knew every sound it made. So when a John Deere service technician showed up for a routine warranty inspection that October morning, Earl wasn't worried. He had nothing to hide. He welcomed the guy in, offered him coffee, and went back to work. He had no idea that the next 45 minutes would change everything. The technician walked around the tractor, checked a few things, made some notes. Earl didn't think much of it. These inspections happened. It was normal. But then the technician said something that stopped Earl cold. He said there were signs of unauthorized modifications to the tractor's engine system. Earl stared at him. Unauthorized modifications. Earl hadn't touched the engine system, not once. He'd done basic maintenance and the stuff any farmer does, but he had never gone inside the engine controls. That wasn't something he even knew how to do. He told the technician that, calmly and clearly. The technician wrote something down and left. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. John Deere was revoking Earl's warranty, effective immediately. The reason stated in the letter: unauthorized modifications to the tractor's software and engine components. Earl read that letter 3 times. Then he sat down. Then he read it again. He hadn't done anything wrong, and he knew it. But there it was, in black and white, with John Deere's logo at the top and a bunch of legal language at the bottom that basically said, "We don't cover you anymore. You're on your own." Now, a warranty on $150,000 piece of farm equipment isn't just a piece of paper. It's protection. It means that if something major breaks, and on a machine that complex, things do break, John Deere pays for it. Without that warranty, a single engine failure could cost Earl $30,000, $40,000 maybe more, money he didn't have sitting around. This wasn't just unfair. This was a financial threat to everything he and Carol had built. He called John Deere customer service. He was put on hold. He called again the next day. He was transferred 4 times and then disconnected. He wrote a formal letter requesting a review of the decision. He got a form response back saying the decision was final. Carol Sutton found out about all of this on a Thursday evening. Earl had been quiet for days, and she'd noticed. When he finally told her everything, the inspection, the letter, the phone calls, the runaround, Carol didn't cry. She didn't panic. She set down her coffee cup very carefully, looked at her husband, and said, "They picked the wrong family." Now Carol is not a loud person by nature. She's a church-going woman. She volunteers at the county fair. She brings casseroles to sick neighbors. But Carol Sutton also grew up watching her father lose his farm because a bank made a decision based on paperwork that didn't reflect reality. And she had promised herself decades ago that she would never let a piece of paper destroy what her family worked for. She started making calls that same night. Not to lawyers, not to news stations, not yet. She called farmers. She called every farmer she knew in the county. Then the next county. Then the county after that. She explained what happened to Earl. She asked them one simple question: "Has anything like this ever happened to you?" The answers she got back were shocking. Turns out Earl wasn't alone. Not even close. Farmer after farmer told Carol about their own experiences with John. Deere warranty issues, denied claims, revoked coverage, being forced to use only John Deere-approved technicians who charged 3 times the price of local mechanics, being told their equipment had problems that local experts said didn't exist. One farmer named Mike, 54 years old, from just 2 counties over, had lost his warranty the year before under nearly identical circumstances. He'd been fighting the decision alone for 8 months and getting nowhere. Another farmer, a woman named Sandra who ran a 400-acre operation by herself after her husband passed, said John Deere had refused to honor a warranty repair on her combine, a machine she needed desperately during harvest season. She'd had to borrow money to fix it herself. Story after story, farmer after farmer. Carol wrote everything down. Here's something most people outside of farming don't understand, and this is important, so stay with me. For decades, John Deere and other major equipment manufacturers have been fighting something called the right to repair. This is the legal right of a person to fix their own property, or take it to a mechanic of their choice, without voiding their warranty or breaking any laws. Sounds obvious, right? Of course, you should be able to fix something you own. But John Deere doesn't see it that way. Modern John Deere tractors run on incredibly complex software. The engine, the transmission, almost every major system, it's all controlled by computer code. And John Deere has locked that code down tight. Farmers can't access it. Independent mechanics can't access it. Only John Deere's authorized dealers can get in there. What that means in real life is this. If your tractor breaks down in the middle of harvest season, and the nearest John Deere dealer is 3 hours away, and they can't get to you for 2 weeks, your crops could literally rot in the field, and there's nothing you can do about it because the software is locked. And if you try to find another way to fix it, if you use an independent mechanic who finds a workaround, John Deere can call that an unauthorized modification and revoke your warranty. Sound familiar? This is what Carol believed had happened to Earl, not because he actually modified anything, but because the system was set up in a way that made it easy to accuse farmers of modifications that never happened, and hard for farmers to prove otherwise. She brought all of this to Earl, the stories from other farmers, the right to repair research she'd done, the pattern she was seeing. Earl listened to everything. Then he said, "So what do we do?" Carol said, "We make some noise." She called Mike first, told him what she was planning. He said he was in. She called Sandra. Sandra said she'd been waiting for something like this for a year. Over the next 3 weeks, Carol organized what would become one of the most unusual protests in modern American farming history. The plan was simple, powerful, and completely legal. On a cold morning in November 2019, 84 tractors showed up outside the regional John Deere Service Center in Tennessee. 84 tractors. They lined the road. They filled the parking lot. They blocked every service entrance. Not violently, not aggressively, just there, present, impossible to ignore. Farmers had driven hours to be there. Some had brought their families. Kids were sitting on the hoods of tractors eating sandwiches. Old men who had been farming for 50 years stood with their arms crossed and their faces set. Women like Sandra, who had fought alone for too long, stood next to strangers who immediately felt like family. Carol stood at the front with Earl. He hadn't wanted to be there, honestly. You have to understand, Earl. This kind of public thing wasn't him. He was a private man. He just wanted his warranty back and to go home. But Carol had looked at him that morning and said, "Earl, this isn't just about us anymore." And he'd put on his good jacket and driven his tractor to the front of the line. Local news showed up within 2 hours. National agriculture news outlets showed up by the afternoon. By the next morning, the story had spread across farming communities all over the country. Social media groups with tens of thousands of farmers were sharing it. Right to repair advocates were sharing it. Regular people who had nothing to do with farming were sharing it. Because the story was just real, and people respond to real. John Deere's response was immediate and telling. Within 48 hours of the protest, a company representative contacted Carol directly. Not Earl, Carol, because whoever was making decisions at John Deere had figured out very quickly that Earl was the farmer, but Carol was the fight. The representative said John Deere wanted to review the case. Carol said, "You can review all 84 cases." There was a long pause on the phone. She wasn't bluffing. She had documented every single story she'd collected. Names, dates, locations, warranty letters, correspondence. 41 pages of it. She'd spent nights at that kitchen table turning farmer stories into something that looked a whole lot like evidence. The representative asked if they could set up a formal meeting. The independent technical review happened in December 2019. An expert who had worked with agricultural equipment for over 25 years examined Earl's tractor. His conclusion? There was no evidence of unauthorized modifications to the software or engine components. None. What the original John Deere technician had flagged as modifications were actually system logs that showed normal diagnostic activity, the kind of routine data that gets written to the system when a tractor is serviced by a John Deere dealer, which Earl's tractor had been, regularly, by the book. The accusation against Earl hadn't just been wrong. It had been based on a misreading or misrepresentation of the data. John Deere reinstated Earl's warranty in January 2020. But Carol wasn't done. She pushed for a review of the other cases. Some were resolved, some weren't, because the situations were more complicated. But the fact that John Deere was now sitting at a table talking to farmers, instead of sending form letters and hanging up the phone, that was new. That was different, and it was because of what Carol and Earl and 84 Tractors had done. Now here's where this story gets bigger than one family. Because what happened in Tennessee in 2019 didn't happen in isolation. It was part of a movement. The right to repair fight had been building for years. Farmers all over America were pushing back against equipment. Manufacturers who locked software, monopolized repair services, and used warranty threats to keep farmers dependent on expensive dealer networks. In 2022, John Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation, the largest farm organization in the United States, agreeing to give farmers better access to tools, software, and the ability to make certain repairs themselves. It wasn't perfect. Advocates said it didn't go far enough. But it was a shift, a real one, and the pressure that helped create that shift came from years of stories like Earl and Carol's, years of farmers saying enough, standing up and refusing to be ignored. In 2023, multiple states introduced right-to-repair legislation, specifically covering agricultural equipment. Some passed, some are still being fought, but the conversation had changed permanently. And here's what gets me about all of this. Earl Sutton didn't start a petition. He didn't hire a PR firm. He didn't go viral on purpose. He just told the truth and let his wife make some phone calls. Carol Sutton didn't have a law degree. She didn't have political connections. She had a kitchen table, a notepad, and 41 years of knowing what it feels like when everything you've built is on the line. Together, they did something that most people, when they're being honest, dream of doing. They looked at a system that was treating them unfairly, and instead of quietly accepting it, they said, "No, we're not doing this. Not today." Earl and Carol's story isn't over. Farming is hard. The equipment is expensive. The companies are powerful. The fight for right to repair is still going. But the ground has shifted. And some of that shift belongs to a couple from rural Tennessee who sat at a kitchen table one Thursday evening and decided they weren't done fighting. Remember Carol's words, They didn't do it because they were brave. They did it because they were scared, and they moved anyway. Next time a system makes you feel small, remember Earl's tractor sitting at the front of that line. Remember 84 engines running in the cold morning air, and ask yourself if you're willing to make one phone call. Now hit that subscribe button, because the next video on your screen right now is one you seriously cannot miss.